was a light.
In the garage of an ordinary home, bright teenager David puts the final touches on the experiment that could decide his entire future. Ever since his father passed away, David has been raised by his mother, an ordinary factory worker, while his teenage sister Christina pitches in by working part-time after school. David has one goal: a scholarship to MIT. A month after submitting his project, he gets the acceptance letter he's been waiting for. But the celebration is short-lived. The school only covers $5,000 of a $40,000 tuition bill, leaving a $35,000 gap nobody in the family can afford. With no other option in sight, David's mother decides to sell the family house to cover the difference, planning to move into a rental while David is away at school. But David refuses. The house is the only thing he has left of his father, but his mother won't budge. She knows her son inherited his late father's genius, and she isn't about to let money bury his future. Searching for another way to fund his tuition, David asks Christina to help him dig through their father's old belongings in the attic for science project material. While going through the boxes, Christina finds an old video camera and presses play, only to discover their father secretly filmed David's 7th birthday party 10 years earlier. However, something doesn't add up. Standing in the background of the footage is a grown man who looks exactly like David does right now, down to the same shirt, backpack, and wristwatch he's currently wearing. David shows the footage to his two best friends and fellow physics obsessives, Quinn and Adam, who assume it's been doctored. David insists it can't be. The camera has sat untouched in the attic for a decade. The next day at school, David accidentally walks off with the wrong backpack after it gets swapped with an identical one belonging to his classmate, Jess. Apologizing for the mix-up gives David an excuse to actually talk to her for the first time, despite years in the same classes, and Jess congratulates him on getting into MIT. That afternoon, David, Christina, Quinn, and Adam try to retrace the mystery man's footsteps from the video, which leads them straight to a light switch in the basement, a workshop belonging to David's father that David has never once set foot in. Snooping around, David finds a hidden floor panel concealing a suitcase identical to the one in the footage. Inside, the documents reveal that David's father secretly worked with a classified military research division, and tucked alongside the paperwork is a half-built prototype machine based on relativity theory. It's labeled Project Almanac, designed for temporal relocation. In plain terms, a time machine. Eager for answers, the group spends the following days gathering parts to finish what David's father started. As physics kids, the technical blueprints aren't much trouble for them, and once they hook the prototype up to a row of car batteries, the room floods with an energy wave that sends electric currents crackling across their skin, right before the batteries die out completely. While tinkering with the wiring, Adam finds an outdated VGA port buried inside the casing, and after David digs up an old CRT monitor to plug into it, the machine boots up a full navigation interface for setting destination dates, one they're able to reprogram and control from a smartphone. A week later, on a second test run, loose metal objects in the room start floating and spinning, while the kids' own bodies flicker as if existing in two places at once, right before an overheating battery splashes acid onto David's shirt. The moment he sees the stain, David realizes it's identical to the one on the mystery man's shirt in the old footage, all but confirming the figure in the video is him. What the machine still needs is hydrogen fuel, which isn't something three teenagers can just walk into a store and buy. So one night, David, Quinn, and Adam break into the school's chemistry lab and quietly steal several tanks of it. Even with fuel secured, their car batteries still aren't strong enough to power a full jump, forcing them to take a break right as a party kicks off across the street. A party Jess happens to be attending in a car with a battery David realizes he can borrow. Jess catches the boys rigging cables to her car and demands an explanation, just as the machine surges to life and David yanks her down to take cover with him. When the dust settles, an item they'd loaded into the chamber has fused into the ceiling, and the GoPro strapped to it shows a timestamp roughly 2 hours in the past, their very first successful jump. David tells a stunned Jess exactly what she just witnessed. Word gets out fast. At school, Jess tracks the boys down, curious to know more, and David tells her the next test will involve a living subject. Jess suggests they use themselves and offers up her car battery and keys for the attempt, which is when the group quietly clocks that Jess's keychain is identical to the one the mystery man was holding in the original footage. That night, the group hauls the machine to Quinn's house, sets the dial for 24 hours earlier, and successfully jumps back a full day. However, when present-day Quinn comes face-to-face with his past self inside his own bedroom, both versions of him start flickering violently. A side effect of two identical people occupying the same place and time, which David realizes could erase them both if he doesn't pull them apart fast enough. The group escapes back to the present moments later, only to discover they've accidentally brought a neighbor's dog along with them, leaving the whole street papering telephone poles with missing pet flyers. An early, almost comical sign that messing with the timeline has consequences they can't always see coming. With human time travel proven safe enough, the group sets a few ground rules. Nobody jumps alone. Every trip gets recorded for reference, and for now, the farthest they can travel is 3 weeks into the past. One by one, they start using it to fix their personal regrets. Quinn goes back to retake a chemistry exam he bombed in front of the whole class, only to discover the question changes each time he repeats the loop, forcing him to actually learn the material instead of memorizing old answers before he finally passes. Christina goes back to confront Sarah, a classmate who's been bullying her, by dumping a drink on her in public. Then, Adam takes a trip back to buy a lottery ticket worth a $53 million jackpot drawn just 1 day later. Though, true to his track record in chemistry class, Adam fumbles the numbers and only matches 3 of 6, knocking their winnings down to $1.8 million split 4 ways, about $360,000 each. While the others spend their cut on whatever they want, David sinks his share into upgrading the machine, eventually stretching its range out to a full 10 years into the past and making it portable enough to control remotely. When Jess asks what he'd actually do with a jump that far back, David admits the truth. His father died in an accident exactly 10 years ago, and part of him wants to go back and try to save him. Soon, the group is using the machine more recklessly, jumping 3 months back to score VIP tickets to a concert they'd already attended. A trip that quietly pushes Jess closer to David, though he's too oblivious to notice she's falling for him, which frustrates Quinn and Adam, who can see exactly what he's missing. Meanwhile, small details back in the present start shifting without explanation. Their mother suddenly has a new job none of them remember her getting. Quinn's social media following balloons into the tens of thousands overnight, and Christina and Sarah are somehow friends now. It turns out none of this is random. Every jump the group makes is quietly rewriting the future around them, one small ripple at a time. Eventually, David breaks his own rule and secretly jumps back alone to the night of the concert to fix things with Jess. And when he returns to the present, Jess shows up at his door wrapped in nothing but a towel, making it pretty clear the two have gotten a lot closer since his solo trip. However, the good changes come bundled with terrible ones. A passenger plane crashes, killing hundreds of people, an event none of them remember ever happening. Digging into it, it's revealed that Sarah's father was the pilot, and the group traces the chain back further. The night of their very first test jump, The resulting blackout caused a car accident that broke the leg of their school's basketball team captain, who also happens to be Sarah's older sibling. The injury tanked team morale. The team lost early, and Sarah's father, who'd planned to take leave to watch the tournament through to the end, flew that route instead. One broken leg and 0 playoff games later, hundreds of strangers are dead. Worse, the crash kicks off a wave of public unrest and rioting that spreads to other cities. The only fix, they realize, is to go back to the very beginning and warn their past selves never to build the machine at all. Except undoing the timeline also erases the night Jess showed up at David's door, the only reason the two of them are even together. Torn, David secretly jumps back alone again, this time to stop the blackout itself by physically pulling the team captain out of the road before the accident happens. It works. Back in the present, the plane crash never occurred, and the team wins their tournament. However, the fix comes at a cost nobody saw coming. Adam is now in a coma, despite having been completely fine that same morning, and Quinn insists he's been unconscious since the night before. While David digs through every past jump to trace the cause, Jess catches him mid-jump and gets dragged along by accident, finally discovering David has been time-traveling behind everyone's back. Hurt that he lied to her, Jess admits that if she'd had access to the machine herself, she would have used it to find a way to meet David sooner. Feelings he never realized she'd had since the very first day they actually talked. Before David can fully explain himself, an alternate version of Jess from a colliding timeline suddenly appears in front of them. Both Jesses flicker violently and vanish on the spot, leaving nothing behind but her car keychain, the exact one the mystery man was holding in the decade-old birthday footage. It turns out that keychain was never a clue about saving David's father at all. It's the proof of this exact collision. With every overlapping jump now crashing into one unstable mess of timelines, and with hydrogen running critically low, David realizes there's only one way left to fix any of it. Stop Project Almanac from ever being built in the first place, 10 years in the past, before his father even finishes the prototype. Complicating things further, David is now the prime suspect in Jess's disappearance, with police actively hunting him down. He manages to sneak back into the school lab for one last hydrogen tank moments before officers nearly catch him, and with seconds to spare, he activates the machine and makes the full 10-year jump. He arrives on the day of his own 7th birthday party, the same day his father is set to die in an accident. Sneaking down into the workshop, David comes face to face with his father, who recognizes his own son instantly despite the 10-year age gap between them. His father asks if the machine ultimately worked, and David confirms it did, but warns him it has to be destroyed because left intact, Project Almanac will eventually tear the timeline apart. His father takes the news in stride, telling David how proud he is of the man he's grown into, before David asks him to go upstairs, hug his younger self one more time, and say goodbye, without ever revealing that today is the day he dies, since changing that one detail risks unraveling the fix entirely. With nothing left to say, David burns every page of the Project Almanac documents, erasing the machine before it can ever be built. From here, the story loops back to the exact moment David and Christina first found the camera in the attic, except, this time, there are 2 cameras waiting in the box, the original footage of David's 7th birthday, and a second tape recording everything David did on his final trip back, including the destruction of his father's research. It's revealed that the instant David burned those documents, the machine and every trip he ever took on it stopped having happened at all, erasing that version of David from the future entirely. The only thing that survived the reset is the camera he physically carried back with him, left behind in the workshop the moment he vanished, eventually packed away and rediscovered by his own past self 10 years later. Which means two versions of David are now colliding into one, the boy who never built the time machine and the one quietly watching footage of a version of himself who did. After he finishes the tape, this new David shows it to Quinn and Adam exactly like before, returns Jess's backpack, and beats her to the exact words she's about to say. And when she asks how he could possibly know that, David doesn't explain. He just tells her, after this, the two of us are going to change the world. Whether that means he goes on to rebuild Project Almanac all over again is left hanging, but with the entire blueprint already sitting on a tape he's watched start to finish, there's nothing stopping him.